Jaws, The Revenge. I've done things a little out of order when it comes to the Jaws movies. I have videos on the original Jaws and Jaws 3D, but I haven't done Jaws 2 or 4 yet. And there's just too much crazy shit in Jaws 4 to not talk about it. It's surprising that they even made a Jaws movie after Jaws 3. But despite being a mess, that movie actually made a decent amount of money, so naturally they were like, fuck it, let's do another one. And Jaws 4 is really a piece of shit. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it's one of the worst movies ever made. Certainly one of the worst big-budget major studio releases ever made. The premise of the movie is so laughable that I'm surprised anyone involved was able to take it seriously. I mean, the poster says it all. Jaws, The Revenge. This time it's personal. And I think all this time, we've been looking at Jaws 4 like it's just a shark movie. And it's not. It's a movie about two rival families. It's the Hatfields and McCoys. It's the Montagues and the Capulets. It's the Starks and the Lannisters. It's the Brody family versus every shark that is related to the shark from the first Jaws movie. That's what we're dealing with here. And the shark sees the Brody family the same way Conan the Barbarian sees Tulsa Doom.
You killed my mother. You killed my father. You killed my people.
And just in case that setup isn't ridiculous enough, you also have the main character of the movie having a psychic connection to the shark with zero explanation. It's fucking madness. And I'm going to get into all that and more as we go. And I think we should just dive right in. Jaws, The Revenge, from 1987. Directed by Joseph Sargent, starring Lorraine Gary, Michael Caine, Lance Guest, and Mario Van Peebles. The movie opens up on Amity Island at Christmas time for some reason. Yeah, this is kind of a Christmas movie in a weird way. It was released in the summer. Most of it takes place in the Bahamas, but Christmas still has a very noticeable presence in the movie. And Martin and Ellen Brody's youngest son, Sean, is all grown up, and he's now working as a deputy in Amity. And there's a gigantic picture of his father on the wall of the police station. It's huge. It might as well be a poster. Roy Scheider is not in this movie as an actor, and I love that for him. But the movie does everything it can to try to make you feel as though he's in it. And Polly is still working in this police station. She was Martin Brody's secretary in the first Jaws movie. And she seemed like kind of an old lady even back then. And if anything, she seems younger now. But this is a Jaws sequel, so nothing makes sense. And she tells Sean that someone has called complaining about a log that is stuck on a buoy, and he has to go get it unstuck. I mean, what the fuck? It's nighttime. It's December. Is this really a pressing issue? One that can't wait until morning? Apparently so. And while he's working on that, a shark jumps out of the water and bites his fucking arm off. At least, I think it was a shark. It's pretty hard to tell. But since this is a Jaws movie, it would be kind of weird if it was something else. And Sean is shaken up about this, but not as much as you would think. His reaction is more like someone who only broke their arm, not lost it entirely. And you know, his jacket seems to have gotten really puffy all of a sudden. Are you sure that your arm isn't just kind of hiding underneath all that? Just stick your arm out, dude. You're fine. In any case, he screams for help, but no one can hear him because everyone is loudly singing Christmas carols. And the shark comes back for more, and he finishes the job. So Chief Martin Brody's youngest son, the little boy from the first movie, this kid from the second movie, and this fully grown adult from the third movie has now grown up to be dead at the fins of yet another shark. Tragic. And are great white sharks capable of swimming in water this cold? Remember, it's wintertime. But that is only one of the many climate-related questions I have for this movie. And it seems like Ellen Brody has to identify the body. Yeah, there's a body. And it has to be identified by a family member? How many cops have gone missing at sea on this fucking island? And the body is at the police station in an office. It's a really weird scenario. And Sean's older brother Mike, his wife Carla, and their daughter show up at Ellen's home. And this is long before Carla took a job trying to get Adriana Lacerva to rat on Christopher Moltisanti. And Ellen is inconsolable, which is understandable. But she says the shark came for Sean, and she wants Mike to give up his job as a marine biologist so he can get away from the water. He tells her not to worry because he works in the Bahamas and there are no great white sharks in the Bahamas. Ellen says the shark killed Sean and it also killed Martin. So, sadly, Martin has died at this point. He died of a heart attack, but Ellen blames the shark for it. She says the fear of sharks killed him, which makes no fucking sense. Sheriff Brody conquered his fear. That was the whole point of the first Jaws movie. And he did it again in 2. But you're telling me that after murdering 2 gigantic sharks single-handedly, he died being afraid of a shark. While being on land, mind you. That's what happened. Okay? And I have questions. Since this shark is being accused of actively targeting the Brody family, does that mean the shark put that log on the buoy knowing that Sean would be assigned to remove it? Who knows? We can't be sure of anything, because this movie is capable of anything. And Mike invites Ellen to spend Christmas in the Bahamas. He thinks it will help her take her mind off things. And she's like, yeah, sure. I mean, we just had the funeral, but why not? I'll go to the Bahamas and act like I'm not in mourning for a while. So they all get on a small plane. The pilot is Michael Caine. And I kind of can't believe that Michael Caine is in this movie. He really sticks out like a sore thumb. He's without question the best actor in this thing. And he even missed accepting an Academy Award because he was away filming this movie. I mean, what is he doing here? Well, the answer is that he got paid a fuck ton of money. And I can respect that. And his character is named Hoagie, inexplicably. I can't believe there's a guy named after a fucking sandwich in this movie. Then again, maybe I shouldn't throw stones in my glass house since I'm Eddie Steak. Maybe I'm just insecure around other food humans. And Hoagie has a lot of gambling debts, which is a piece of information that will not come into play at any point in this movie. It is completely irrelevant. Anyway, they land, they settle in, and Mike goes back to work. He's doing some marine biology bullshit with his friend, Jake. And Jake is played by Mario Van Peebles. And he is doing an insane Jamaican accent for the majority of this movie. I say majority because it does slip in and out. And Jake's introduction to the movie is also kind of nuts because he will not shut the fuck up. They're out here tagging conch snails and examining their genitalia. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And this is admittedly fucking boring, but Jake is constantly complaining about it. He doesn't want to do this shit. It's Christmas Eve, and he just wants to go home. And keep in mind, he's ranting and raving about this to a guy who just lost his brother. Now, to be fair, when he heard that Mike's brother was killed, he probably thought he'd have at least a couple days off while Mike spends time with his family. But it turns out he's back at work like 24 hours later. So he's probably a little annoyed, but he should still keep that to himself. I mean, it seems like a fairly cushy gig. At one point he even says, "I'm getting tired of all this paradise shit." I guess he'd rather be examining the ass end of a rainbow trout in the middle of Alaska. And there's no tension whatsoever. In the first Jaws movie, anytime someone was in the ocean or even close to it, there was tension. But here, there's nothing. Because it's fucking boring. And jumping around a little bit, because there are so many irrelevant scenes in this movie, it's Christmas, and once again Ellen asks Mike to give up working in the ocean. He tries to reassure her that what he does is safe and boring. And I can attest to the latter, at least, after watching a whole scene of him molesting mollusks. And while Ellen is playing on the beach with her granddaughter, Thea, she senses the shark. She's apparently having a psychological connection to this fucking creature. It's wild. And obviously, the shark is out there somewhere, despite the fact that the waters in this area are too warm for great white sharks. That's how hell-bent on revenge this shark is. And while Mike and Jake are back working on observing sea snails, the shark attacks Mike's boat. It followed them to the Bahamas. Somehow this shark swam from the northeast coast of the United States all the way down to the Bahamas in basically, 2 days?
Fast fish. Watch my eye!
And how does the shark even know they left? Did they leave a note at the house? Did Ellen tweet about it? What the fuck is going on here? And Ellen can sense this attack from the mainland. And she decides that the best thing for her to do is dance around a little bit with Hoagie. I don't really get it. But luckily, the shark just kind of decides to fuck off. And Mike tells Jake to keep this a secret. He doesn't want his mom or his family to know that there's a great white shark in the Bahamas. And Jake, on the other hand, is excited. He wants to see if they can track the shark because he thinks the fact that it's here is a significant scientific discovery, which I guess it would be. And I guess a few days have passed. They're at a New Year's party at some casino, and Hoagie has been hanging around with Ellen a lot. They seem to be hitting it off. But Mike doesn't like that. He doesn't like Hoagie very much. He doesn't seem to trust him. He thinks he has ulterior motives when it comes to his mom. And this is a dynamic that has no purpose or resolution whatsoever. Mike is a strange fucking character in this movie. His motivations make no sense. He's interested in the shark, but he won't tell anyone about it. And he also seems to hate Hoagie for seemingly no reason. And it never feels like he actually mourns for the loss of his brother. He does not give a shit. It all seems like a big inconvenience to him. It's really fucking weird. And jumping around once again, because nothing is happening in this movie right now, Mike argues with his wife Carla about garbage. Seriously, it's like a 2-minute scene about who's responsible for taking out the garbage. Carla asks why Mike didn't take out the garbage. Mike asks why he's the only one that has to take it out. And Carla says, because, and walks away. Because, end of sentence, period, was her entire retort. And the argument ends when Carla takes out a fucking blowtorch and points it at Mike. And he says, I've always wanted to make love to an angry welder. It's fucking painful. A totally pointless scene that reveals nothing except Mike's welder fetish. And personally, I don't know. I've always wanted to bang a demented bricklayer myself. And Mike and Jake manage to lure the shark in and plant a tracker on it. And while they're working on following the shark, Mike decides that now is the perfect time to grill Jake about Hoagie. He wants to know more about him, and if his intentions towards his mother are honorable. It's an extremely weird time to bring this up while they're hunting a giant shark with telepathic powers and the ability to swim the entire length of the eastern seaboard in a matter of hours. And the shark gets away. They can't find it, even with the tracker, somehow. And Mike says, maybe your gear crapped out. And Jake says, maybe you crapped out, flapping your lips about Hoagie.
Good one. Yep, that was a good one.
And later that night, Mike has a nightmare about the shark. And that's another thing that's happening in this movie. Both he and Ellen have been having shark nightmares, which is maybe understandable, but it just makes it feel like there's even more supernatural elements to this movie. Like the shark has fucking Freddy Krueger powers now. And at some point later, Mike gets attacked by the shark while he's in a submersible. And he uses his oxygen tank as a rocket to make it back to the surface. Seems unsafe, but okay. It's a scene that really amounts to nothing, which is pretty standard for this movie. And Mike is still not telling anyone about this. It's kind of crazy. For the first time ever, a great white shark has been spotted in the Bahamas. And it's incredibly violent. It's attacked his boat twice. And he's just letting his family hang around the water. And that's exactly what happens. Carla is at some kind of ceremony on the beach. She's presenting some kind of an art piece she made. She welded together this fucking red jungle gym. I don't know what the fuck it's supposed to be. And I guess people have shown up to congratulate her for it. And she allows Thea to go in the water on some kind of banana boat ride. And of course, the shark shows up and nearly kills her. But instead, it just swallows up some lady on the boat. Tragic. Luckily, Thea survives and no one else seems to have been hurt. But Ellen sort of flips the fuck out and decides to steal Mike's boat. I guess her plan is to simply go draw the shark out to sea and allow it to eat her, hoping that it will follow her, eat her, and just agree to leave the rest of the family alone. Which is a weird strategy. Because other than her nightmares and her psychic visions, the shark has shown zero interest in Ellen herself. In fact, up until the last 12 minutes of this movie, Ellen hasn't been involved in any shark attacks at all in the entire Jaws franchise. But suddenly, it's all about her versus this fucking shark. And Hoagie, Mike, and Jake fly out looking for her. Hoagie tells them that Ellen thinks the shark that killed Martin and Sean is following the family. Okay, fuck me. Martin wasn't killed by a shark. He had heart disease. Okay, I have a weird fear of being mauled by chimpanzees. I've heard enough stories about how they will rip the balls off of you and take the eyes right out of your head. I'm fucking terrified of them. In fact, I would happily swim with a group of sharks before I would ever be in a room alone with a chimp. They can be fucking brutal. But if I keel over because I have a heart attack, which, let's face it, is likely because of my current diet, don't blame any chimps. It wasn't my irrational fear of chimps. It was the fucking cheeseburgers. Anyway, Ellen sees the shark and she says, "Come and get me." It's very dramatic. Hoagie spots the boat and he crashes the plane in the water on purpose. It's a bit of a bold move, considering the fact that flying is his only source of income and he's supposedly drowning in gambling debts. I guess he really cares about Ellen after all. And Jake says they have to get out of the plane because the shark is attracted to the electromagnetic impulses of the metal on it. What the fuck? That doesn't make any sense at all. This guy is not a scientist. I would think they need to get out of the plane because it's fucking sinking. How about that? And they all swim over to the boat, but Hoagie gets attacked by the shark. Tragic. Seems like he's dead. But actually, he's not. He miraculously survives and swims over to the boat undetected by the shark, and it doesn't even look like his clothes are wet. It's a fucking miracle. And Ellen says Mike shouldn't have come for her. She says this was her only option. Actually, I think they could simply just stay on land. I think if they did that, then this magic shark wouldn't be able to get them. Then again, it is a magic shark, so maybe it could get them while they're just sitting on the toilet. Just like my childhood fear. Yes, after seeing the first Jaws movie, I was afraid to sit on the toilet because I thought a shark would bite me on my asshole. I was a timid little creature. What can I say? Anyway, Jake rigs up some kind of bullshit device that emits electrical shocks. It's basically a big remote-controlled taser. And he sticks it in the shark's mouth. And then this happens. And he's fucked, right? He's in the shark's mouth. There's no coming back from this for Jake. Tragic. And now Ellen has a bunch of flashbacks to events that she was not present for. She visualizes Sean's death. She also sees Martin kill the original shark. She wasn't there for any of these events. We can only assume that she's been watching these movies, along with the rest of us. It's the only explanation. In any case, Mike starts shocking the shark, and it leaps out of the water and remains there and starts kind of walking on the surface of the ocean and roaring like a dinosaur. And then the shark just kind of gets randomly impaled by the front of this boat. And it fucking explodes like a popped balloon. I mean, what the fuck? Why would that have happened? Was there shark repellent bat spray on the bow of this fucking boat? I mean, who the fuck knows? And the bloody corpse of the shark sinks, and it's the same exact shot from the original Jaws movie. So the shark is dead. They're safe. And it turns out that Jake is alive. He was in the shark's mouth. It was biting down on his entire torso, but he's still kicking. And Mike asks him, "What the hell are you doing alive?" Good fucking question. I have no idea. But it's a happy ending. Ellen gets on board Hoagie's new plane, or maybe he just has two planes. Either way, who cares? And Hoagie's last line is, "When I get back, remind me to tell you about the time I took 100 nuns to Nairobi." I mean, fucking hell, let's do that movie. That already sounds like a better plot than this shit. And they take off for God knows where, and frankly, who the fuck cares? The end. Horrendous movie. I mean, you would think that the fourth movie in a franchise would at least manage to be entertaining on a sort of so bad it's good level, right? You'd think that they would ramp up the shark attacks, or at least use action to try to make up for their lack of story and believable character development, right? But no. This movie is 90 minutes long, and it could have honestly been 30 minutes long. I mean, nothing is happening in this movie. Nothing of relevance. It also has by far the lowest body count of any Jaws movie. 2 people die in this movie. Sean and that fucking banana lady. That's it. I don't think I've ever seen a horror sequel that didn't try to amp up the violence and gore. But there's nothing of the sort. With the exception of Sean getting his arm bitten off, you could probably air this uncut in its entirety on the fucking Disney Channel. It's crazy. And the characters are obviously all pretty terrible. Mike doesn't seem to have any regard for his family's safety, doesn't care that his brother died, and Lance Guest plays Mike, and I was trying to figure out where I know him from, and he was the main character in the movie The Last Starfighter, and he's almost totally unrecognizable in this movie. I guess the beard really disguises him. And Ellen Brody is also a bit of a lunatic, but at the same time, she's right. Despite how fantastic and unbelievable it is, the shark is actually trying to murder her family, and no one is listening to her. And Lorraine Gary, who plays Ellen Brody, came out of retirement to be in this movie. I have no idea why. I hope she was paid well. But I doubt she needed the money. She was married to the president of Universal Studios. I doubt she was starving, but who knows? And nothing about Ellen's psychic connection to the shark is explained. Nothing about the supernatural elements of the shark are explained. You just can't expect that in a movie like this. For all we know, it's the same shark from Jaws 1, and it's been resurrected through black magic.
That's what this is, you know. Satanic black magic. Sick shit.
That's my second Sopranos reference in this video. I did not see that coming. But that's probably what happened. Ash Williams must have read the shark section of the Necronomicon, and the shark came back to life with superpowers. It's the only explanation. This movie pretty much ignores the other two Jaws sequels. It definitely ignores Jaws 3. Mike is a totally different character in that movie. And I don't just mean because he's played by Dennis Quaid. In Jaws 3, he's a fully fledged marine biologist working at SeaWorld. And in this movie, he's more of a marine biology student who's just trying to make ends meet by cataloging a bunch of sea snails. And obviously, if Jaws 2 and 3 happened, Mike should be considered a veteran of giant shark attacks. And probably should believe his mother's seemingly crazy assertions. But he is not, and does not. And to wrap this up, it's a shit movie, in case you can't tell. Definitely the worst of the Jaws sequels, and probably one of the worst major studio releases of all time. The Jaws franchise is very similar in a lot of ways to the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, in my opinion. The first entry is an all-time classic. That's two of the best movies of all time, in my opinion. And the second is pretty solid and fun. The third one is kind of a mess, and the fourth one is a total mess. Very similar trajectories. And I suppose we can thank another Universal Studios release, Back to the Future Part 2, for mocking the Jaws franchise with Jaws 19. I think that was probably the final nail in the coffin for the Jaws movies. Then again, you could say that they still make Jaws movies to this day because every killer shark movie is kind of a Jaws movie. And they typically range from kind of fun and silly to horrendous. But you can kind of trace their conception all the way back to that original Jaws movie in 1975. And it's something they've never been able to replicate because that was a great movie first and a killer shark movie second. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Let me know what you think of Jaws the Revenge. And until next time, take it easy.
Smile, you son of a bitch.
A what?